Welcome back to Brown Girl Blue. My name is Tabitha, and on this channel, I talk about my memories growing up as a child in the Jehovah Witness religion. So, the past couple of days, I've started this journey now that we're in the Christmas season, and I wanted to take a bit of a twist on the 12 days of Christmas. Instead of talking about the partridge and the pear tree and the five golden eggs, I wanted to take a little bit of a twist on that and think about the gifts that at least I perceive them as gifts of the result of the experiences that I had growing up as a child in that JW culture. So far I've talked about gratitude, which is just being grateful for everything in my life, all of my experiences in my life, and just being present in the moment and just enjoying life and loving my family, loving myself, loving the people that are in my life, and being grateful for all the sum of my current life. Then I talked about humanity and just being appreciative of all things that make us human and looking at those positive elements of humanity, like our ability to love and goodness and kindness and patience and those type of attributes. Today, a gift that I have considered as part of that development of my particular upbringing is resilience. Now, it was one thing that us now adult Jehovah Witness kids are resilient. And I have a definition. Let me look at my phone. I looked it up earlier. I was going to make sure I give you a nice, good definition of that. But resilience is the ability to adapt and recover from difficult experiences while maintaining psychological well-being. It's the ability to bounce back from adversity. And that's the one thing that we definitely can do is we have learned to bounce back from adversity. When I just think about my school experience, and I know if you were raised as a Jehovah Witness, if you were raised as a child in the Jehovah Witness religion, you know all about this. That feeling of isolation, being singled out for every single thing, even something that seemed like really minor. We had to make a stand and be courageous and take a stand for these things based on our religious beliefs. And I'm fully aware that there are other religions too in our society that there's certain practices that are not participating with because of their religious beliefs. But I can only speak from my experience growing up in the Jehovah Witness culture. Um, when I think about when there were Christmas plays and not being allowed to watch them, if there's Christmas candy, not being able to partake of the candy. Like I've always loved candy canes. And even now, I still love candy canes very much. But I remember as a child just really just being almost infatuated with Christmas candies because they were so pretty and different colors. And everyone just seems to be like, they seem to be just so delicious. I was like, oh, I wish I could have some Christmas candy. Not being allowed to partake of any Christmas cookies and, definitely not anything Halloween and Easter, like all the holidays, right? It didn't matter which one none of them we could partake with. But what I'm speaking to is remember when you were in school or in your class and there was something that that you couldn't do as a Jehovah Witness kid and you had to be courageous. And if most times my teacher already knew, and especially when I was younger, they would have my parents' instructions in the beginning of the year about what I can do, what I couldn't do. And so they would kind of make an excuse for me. But as I got older, I had to do it myself. So having the courage to, go up to the teacher, the instructor, and let them know, so, I'm sorry, but I can't participate with this because of my religious beliefs. And so I have to go and do some type of alternative activity. So that does build a certain resilient behavior in you because it teaches you not to be afraid and also teaches you that even when you're going through that really stressful and moment at the time, it eventually does pass, and it gets a little bit easier each time. At least Lisa did for me, because that's just what you did. And so now, and also in addition to that, just My parents, when I look back and with a better understanding of life, as I'm now into this adulthood thing, looking back, there was a lot of, I don't know if they realized it, and my thought is that they probably didn't, but there was a lot of self sabotage of things. On one of my videos, I shared about when we would go to the circuit assembly or the district convention. And those of you who aren't Jehovah Witnesses or familiar with any Jehovah Witness activities, witnesses have conferences where it's like a business conference where you have people who live in a certain area and you would go to this conference and they would talk about some key topics that were administered from leadership, which leadership in a Jehovah Witness religion is called the governing body. And they would have them during the summer, and they would have some fall and winter conferences as well. And so when we have these conferences, and because of where we lived, they were always out of our local area. So usually were driving. I think at the most we had to drive 4 or 5 hours. So usually So what we did was we stayed in a hotel to attend these 2-3 day conferences. So anytime we went to these conferences, there was always some type of financial hardship for my family. Now, my father worked a full-time job. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but there were also 6 children. And so, when you have a lot of kids, money gets tight really quick, especially if you have, it was like my dad was, he wasn't wealthy. He was just an average working guy making an average salary. And so, there's not enough money, not a lot of money to go around. And so my parents, I always felt, and I know I'm looking at this from a child's perspective when I put myself in that situation, but it always seemed like it was always never well planned for. Like it was always a rush job. It was always, at least to me, as an adult, I'm sure there were a lot of things that they were trying to manage. They had to pay the mortgage, they had to, have 6 children to take care of. There probably wasn't enough money left over to ever save up for these things. But it was the expectation for you to go, whether you could afford it or not. The belief was that if you had enough faith, you would find a way. And so my parents, to their own detriment most times, they found the way forward. And they weren't the only ones that did that. So every time we went to these conferences, there was always some type of challenge that we had to push through, whether if it was a car breaking down or one of the kids or several kids got sick, or if something happened on the way to the conference, like maybe a tire blew out and my dad had to fix it, or try to usually because he was also a mechanic. And so, fixing a tire, or maybe more than one tire blew out and you only had one spare, having to stop somewhere to get a used tire. Because I never remember my parents buying new tires. It was always a used tire because they were really tight on funds. And then they weren't the only ones. There was always some type of like hardship that people had to work through to get to these conferences. So there's definitely a lot of self-sabotaging behavior. And if you know anything about Jehovah's Witness religion, I've tried to share some of that with you on this channel, is that there's definitely this atmosphere, this culture of persecution, where the expectation is if you're not being persecuted, then you're not a real Christian, because only real Christians get persecuted. And so everyone was striving for persecution because that would prove your Christian worthiness, your Christian abilities. So I definitely learned a lot of resilience from that, because we went through so many hardships. There's some debate about the self-sabotage. I'm thinking that it probably was. But besides that, I still went through it with them. I was used to always seeing things not going right and being taught to persevere no matter what. And so today in my adult life, I definitely exhibit quite a bit of resilience, to where things don't shake me, to where when something happens, I just know that, hey, it'll get better. I mean, it'll be fine. Right now I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. It's not, when you go through different things in life, you're going to have to kind of sit with it a little bit, but knowing that eventually that it will pass. So that was something that I had to learn over time, coming to that, because there was a time in my young adult life where I was exhibiting the same behaviors as my parents. And when I look back, I can remember saying similar things like they did, which you do because you often model your parents' behavior. I can remember thinking when I had my first car, and I was always worried about my car breaking down. And guess what? It broke down. Or I would worry about not having enough money for class and for food. And guess what? I didn't have enough money. And so it was always like, oh, I was like, why do these things keep happening? Why am I always struggling? And I think I was working with some friends. Like, I don't remember who kind of put me on this path of, hey, no, you actually can change your outcomes by thinking a little bit differently and understanding what faith really is. And so by having those kind of early conversations, it catapulted me to seek more information, to dig deeper into it. And again, I got that from my experience growing up as a Jehovah Witness kid, because you do a lot of research. I mean, just for me to get baptized, it was like doing a dissertation. So my ability to dive deep into topics, especially something that really grabs my attention, definitely was a side effect of growing up as a child of the Jehovah Witness religion. So back to resilience. So being able to bounce back from challenging behaviors or from challenging incidents, I definitely consider that to be a gift that I was able to garner from my experience growing up in that religion with my family. So, do you have any experiences similar or different things that you have experienced that have really impacted your adult development? And, again, I know that we went through some really challenging experiences. We all have a story to share to help each other. But in spite of that, it's been really helpful for me to also look at, okay, so I went through these really horrible things. And some things I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about everything, but the things that I've shared so far with you all, still, there have been some pretty impactful things that affected me during that time when I was living through it. I had to really stop and really take a fresh look at it and say, okay, so I went through these things. I've had this experience, but how did that affect my development into who I am today? And so that's why I'm sharing this journey with you. Hopefully it'll be helpful to you to have just maybe have a different think about things, or to at least have a different type of conversation with yourself to see if there's anything that you can see, said, I went through this horrible time. But actually from that experience, I have this ability now. So far, the things I am grateful for, or the things that I have acknowledged that because of going through that experience and me making a decision, because part of that too is making a decision as well, where gratitude is an important component in my life, in my daily life. I have deep compassion for humanity. And today, talking about our resilience and our ability to bounce back, because you growing up as a child in the Jehovah's Witness religion, I'm not saying for everyone, because everyone has a different experience. Some people who are Jehovah's Witnesses have beautiful experiences. Their family structure is solid and great for them. But from my experience and the people that I know in my life, there were always some challenging things that we were experiencing that for me, that was able to set the foundation for my resilience. So that is my third gift that I am talking about today. There'll be 9 more to come, so please look out for those. But until then, thank you all for watching. I looked at my channel today and I have 44 subscribers. I'm like, yay, we're growing. I think when I get to 50, I'll probably will do a YouTube live. That'll be my first time doing that, so look out for that. So I'll put it out there. When I get 50 subscribers, I'm going to do a YouTube live. That'll be my first one. But until then, thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.